Hello everyone, sorry for a bit of technical troubles, but what kind of talk is it if everything goes well with technology? How human are our design systems? It's not something I see a lot being talked about, so I thought, why not? It's been cooking in my head for a while now, so let's try this thing. My name is Justyna. I come from Poland originally. Currently I live in Sweden. And I work at Klarna, the Swedish fintech, I think currently the top financial unicorn in Europe. I'm a team lead, newly appointed 2 weeks ago, God help me, and a lead designer of their design system team. I was really surprised when they brought me in because my profile is a little bit different than what you would expect of design system designer. But the fantastic manager I work with, Francesco, he pitched the idea of me moving to the design system team through the team needing more human focus. So I'm not component-obsessed person. I'm not really this kind of designer who's all about pixels. So if you came here to hear about components, I'm really sorry. But don't leave just yet. I think I have a few cool things to offer. My strengths lie more in understanding people deeply, the people I work with every day, but also the end users that use our products. I can conduct very good workshops. I am mostly focused on collaboration, bringing people together. And also user research is something I am pretty good at. Today I'll talk about systems that humans interact with. It's something I've been passionate about for a long time now. This is a photo I took as part of the reportage me and my journalist friends completed in Turkey. We went to the border in Syria, with Syria in 2016 to document different barriers immigrants face or refugees face when trying to flee war, facing different complications in a country that doesn't really want them. I've worked in the past with homeless people. I've worked with different groups that get pushed out by systems. So it is something that is close to me and that I try to bring into my work every day. What are systems? What are we even talking about, right? Systems exist to make sense of a mess. The messes around us are often made of people and information. Systems usually have a goal in mind. They put things in place and they organize them to achieve a specific goal. It might be to help understand something. It might be to help us achieve something on the way. Systems surround us every day. We might not feel them if they're well designed. If we can flow through them smoothly, there's a big chance that they were pretty much designed for us, right? There might be, though, a situation where a system makes us feel especially good, and there might be situations where systems make us feel especially bad. And I would like to share two personal stories with you to illustrate what I mean. How many of you here have experienced being an immigrant in a foreign country? Then you know what I'm talking about. The first time I moved out of Poland, I moved to work full-time in Germany. That was not a great experience for me personally as an immigrant. Then I moved to Sweden, where I live right now, and it was such a difference. Everything was available in English. A lot of things were thought through, taking into consideration needs of people who are, moving there, not really knowing all of the cultural differences, not really knowing how to navigate the complex tax system. A lot of documents, a lot of those services, people who work in those services, they speak perfect English. They're like, oh, I'm really sorry, my English is not very good, and then they proceed to speak perfect English. This was a system that surprised me. That was an absolute blast ever since I moved in. After living in Germany, where my German is far better than my English, it just didn't feel like the system was trying to make me feel comfortable. An opposite example of feeling excluded by a system is trying to play video games when being a woman. I come from a pretty conservative upbringing, so playing games was not ladylike, let's say. But I was really fascinated by shooters, and I always wanted to play shooters. So, you know, pandemic hit in 2020. I was like, I'm going to learn this. I'm gonna be a gamer, right? But I very quickly realized that shooters are based on a military system, right? There's a whole range of weapons that a lot of those games might use. There's different types of ammo. There's different types of commands. I was completely overwhelmed because I had no idea about this. I was so confused. When do even men learn that, right? And so the different communities that some games might have, the different perceptions of female gamers. Me having extreme motion sickness, which I learned later on that anatomically, women are much more likely to get motion sickness, but not a lot of games provide different adjustments to make female gamers more comfortable. So these are still like very complex systems I try to navigate and learn, but they don't really make me feel welcome in a lot of games. But then when a game comes along that feels like they're expanding into user base that was not really included before, that makes me feel really empowered and, you know, keeps me in the loop. That's on the systems and how we might experience them. Moving on to the core of my talk today, the design systems. How many of you heard of design systems before? Pretty much a majority. But design systems, they basically also make sense of a mess, but they're of course built for making profit. Design systems are blocks of interface that are both existing in design. They're also coded so that teams can use these blocks to assemble an interface or a product, and that this way they do not rebuild it every single time. They can go to a library and assemble a product together. Another very great benefit of it is that the product looks consistently, right? Different blocks behave, look the same way, so user can get used to things working the same way in the product. So the moment they learn it, it speeds up both the development process and the learning curve user has. Yeah, so, you know, once a component is made, it can keep being reused, and from there, things can scale up pretty quickly. We can build very complex systems where we set up teams for success, which is great for making money, right? Like, the faster we go and the better our final output is, the better profit we can make off of it. What I want us to look at today is the people that are affected by design systems that we build. Let's take Klarna, my beautiful, crazy European fintech unicorn. If you have never seen a bank use a condom in their brand image, today is the day when you do. Klarna, the place where I work. We are based on buy now, pay later model. Basically, what we offer to our consumers is a more flexible way to pay for their shopping. The two flag features that we offer is buy now, pay in 30 days. I use that one a lot, right? I want to buy a new winter jacket that I can't really find anywhere in the store. I'm a tall woman, okay, I need like it to be well designed for me, but I'm not yet sure if it's gonna look good on me. I order it online, I pay with Klarna. So my Klarna pays for me, and then my payment to Klarna is in 30 days. So this is when usually it gets delivered. I can try it on. If I don't like it, I return it. And I never had to go through the hassle with the money, right? Like waiting for the refunds, trying to figure that out. A lot of people are in this financial situation when they can't really afford buying something first and then not liking it, sending it back, etc. The second financial feature that we offer is splitting it in parts. So buying something and then paying it in 4 or 3 installments depending on the market, and we don't add any interest to it. So it's different than the usual, like the model that the banks provide. We make most money off of merchants who integrate Klarna into their checkout experience, right? Let's say you're shopping at Zara and you can pay with Klarna in 30 days. So that's in a very big summary how our business model works. Let's imagine. There's a David. He's an imagined designer. He works for Klarna, right? And he is responsible for designing this experience of, user being in an online store and then deciding to choose Klarna, right? And then looking at this imaginary designer, David, and his simplified skills. As a designer, let's say he's not a great visual crafter. He can make a decent prototype. But something David is really passionate about is user research and inclusive design. So knowing different guidelines, different requirements needed to design for people with different disabilities, let's say, right? And then there's another designer at Klarna. Let's call her Amy. Amy is responsible for a different part of experience. She designs the part where user comes back, let's say after 30 days, and has to pay off what he or she bought 30 days ago. Amy is very much recognized for her visual skills. She's an amazing crafter. Her prototypes have all the animations. Her handover to developers is, displaying very deep understanding of how interfaces work, right? And now on the other side, meet an imaginary user, Kayla. Kayla is a blind person. She can't see at all, but she decides to buy something with Klarna. And now what I want to ask you is, how many of you know what a screen reader is? Cool. How many of you have ever seen a person using a screen reader? And how many of you, if you were to build something for screen reader tomorrow, would be confident in doing so? Halfway there. Cool. What I want to show you quickly is the demo of how a screen reader works, because that's going to be very relevant for the next part of the presentation.
Hi, my name is Jason Holt. I'm with the Universal Access Department. Today, we will be demonstrating a screen reader. With the screen reader, I, as a blind person, can navigate to a web page, and I don't use a mouse because I can't see where the mouse is pointing, but I can use a keyboard, and JAWS, the screen reader, will tell me where I am on the page and allow me to read various parts of the page. Okay, let's take a few minutes to actually see how JAWS works. Here we are at my main screen on my computer, and I want to browse the internet, so I will open up a browser. I'll press the Windows key.
Menu, search box, edit, type text in this edit field or press up or down arrow.
And JAWS announced that I have a menu. Then I want to find my browser. My favorite browser is Firefox.
JAWS 17.0, one of Internet Explorer submit, Word 2013 submit, Firefox submenu 406.
Oh, Firefox, that's the one I want, so I'll press Enter.
Enter, leaving menus, Firefox, Mozilla Firefox, start page, Mozilla Firefox, search clear.
That opens the browser. Now I'll press Alt-D to put my cursor in the navigation bar.
Alt-D, navigation toolbar, search.
Now let's go to our homepage, the community college's homepage. So I'll type SLCC
period EDU.
EDU. You notice that JAWS repeats to me each character as I type it. That way if I make a mistake, I can hear it and I can backspace.
Slash U HTTP://
and I can retype it again.
U search your address edit combo SLCC.
Now I'll press Enter.
SLCC-Mozilla Firefox page has 3 regions, 8 settings, and 68 links. SLCC.
Oh, it says SLCC. It sounds like I'm on the right page. Okay, here we are on our home page, and I want to go to the accessibility page, the college's accessibility page. I don't know where that is on this screen, so I'll do a search.
Virtual find, JAWS find dialog, find what colon edit combo.
I'm searching for accessibility.
ACCESSIPLITY. Enter. Visited link accessibility.
Oh, it tells me I'm now on the link that says accessibility. That's what I want, so I'll press Enter on that link.
Enter. Accessibility visited link. Vertical bar SLCC-Mozilla Firefox. Vertical bar SLCC list. Page has 3 regions, 1 heading and 69 links. List of 2 items link SLCC/accessibility.
Okay, I'm on the accessibility page. If I press H, which lets me jump from header to header.
Accessibility heading level 1.
Heading, I'm sorry, not header. I'm at the accessibility heading. Let's read what it says under that.
List of 7 items.
Oh, there's a list of items.
Visited link home.
Home.
Link web accessibility.
Accessibility.
Link web accessibility.
Web accessibility.
Link purchasing.
Purchasing.
Link web accessibility. Link accessible documents.
Accessible documents.
Link types of disabilities.
Types of disability.
Visited link captioning.
Captioning.
List end.
Now let's hear what the text says underneath the heading.
Web accessibility means that people with disabilities can use the web. More specifically, web accessibility means that people with disabilities can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with the web, and that they can contribute to the web.
One thing you should know is that having a screen reader by itself does not make the internet accessible to me. If you look at our homepage, and as I navigate through it,
SLCC.
You'll find that there are headings
Summer classes heading level 2.
and regions which the designers have made some effort to put into the page that allow me to jump from section to section, so I don't have to stop and explore every little link to find where I want to be. On some web pages where there might be almost 100 links, but yet there's no way to skip to the main part of this article that I want to read. So I have to skip from link to link to link and jump from section to section to find where I want to be, the main article. Sometimes it is frustrating, but after one has some experience with a screen reader, you learn some tricks.
That's what the experience of browsing internet looks like for a blind person who is using a screen reader. And going back to Kayla, the blind person who wants to buy something with Klarna, let's imagine her journey, right? She is browsing an online store because she wants to order something. And she stumbles upon Klarna at checkout. She's really amazed how well it works on screen reader. She doesn't often see these solutions being so well integrated for her, right? She's used to big chunk of the internet being kind of broken, but she's absolutely amazed and she decides to pay for something with Klarna. This is something that David designed, the designer who was passionate about the topic, right? Then the 30 days go by. Kayla remembers, oh yeah, I tried that Klarna thing. I will have to pay in 30 days. I hope they remind me. We sent all kinds of, emails. But then in the end of the journey, the experience of Kayla gets terrible because the experience of paying off her debt is completely broken on a screen reader. And this is something that was designed by Amy, who unfortunately designed a very beautiful screen that has many cool transitions, and there's a confetti when you pay it off, and the colors are vibrant and perfect, the brand shines through. But this is just not something Amy is knowledgeable about, so the experience is completely broken. From Kayla's perspective, she has no idea how Klarna works internally. She has no idea there might be multiple designers and multiple factors that influence her journey. What Kayla experiences is, oh my God, it was so easy for me to get into debt. But the moment I'm trying to pay it off, it's broken, right? Kayla could sue Klarna on a very good basis. Kayla could go to media, post it on her Twitter. It looks really, really bad for Klarna in this case, right? And so I'm bringing up this example to explain what design systems should be just beyond providing a set of components. A well-working design system combined with strong design leadership is the golden standard of different skills and of different things that we use every day to build these experiences, right? It shouldn't matter that Amy's not really good at accessibility. She should be able to be guided internally. She should be able to have access to materials that allow her to design for all the users. Design system, at least in bigger organizations, or medium to big organizations, it's this team or a set of teams that is influencing all the product teams that are working with the interface. It's strengthening their connections. It's producing materials for all of them so that their work can get sped up, and also up to a certain quality standard. And this is all what gets then shipped to users. But I want us to look at yet another example of systems that fail us. These are input fields for users' names that have gone wrong. I think like 3 or 4 examples here I took from airlines. As you can see, the kind of feedback you get, you know, imagine you're pasting your, or you're typing in your last name somewhere, and it tells you invalid name. It tells you format is not valid. It tells you kindly enter the correct last name. Please enter a valid real name. What kind of message does this sound, right? Does this send, right? And I know what it looks like from the inside of the organization. It can be difficult to work with different databases to cover all of the edge cases. Some people can have just such, you know, things that we just can't predict because they don't come maybe from our culture. Maybe this is not something we're familiar with. And that's understandable, right? Maybe we have all of those tickets somewhere in the backlog and we will tackle them next quarter. I promise we will solve this at some point, right? But look at it from the perspective of a user. Look at it from the perspective of somebody who maybe comes from a culture where multiple surnames are very common. And then they trying to interact with different products. Let's say there's a 90% chance they're not going to be able to enter their own name, right? One of my friends, when I showed him this slide, he said, oh yeah, this is a great example of how important content design is to explain to the user what happened instead of just saying name is not valid. But that's not really the point. Even if we explain to the user, oh, we can't accept this format of a name right now, please contact customer support. I'm trying to book a flight. I already went through all of your whole flow, right? How is my name invalid? More examples like this are regularly collected on a Twitter account called Your Name is Invalid, and then through the hashtag Your Name is Invalid, people are sharing, you know, their different experiences. It's kind of a wrong message that we're sending, right? Let's say your name is not European enough, your name doesn't sound wide enough, your name has some weird characters in it and that doesn't really fit our, you know, technical infrastructure. And what happens is that we often tend to think of users as like, you know, those are the users, they're all of those people who's going to use our product. But there's different groups of them, right? And we tend to empathize more with people who look like us, who come from the same place as us. The empathy can only take us as far, you know. And just as we saw, I put users with disability here on purpose because, yeah, the less some users think like us, behave like us, look like us, the further they can get from the solutions that we are actually providing. And from a design system team perspective, me being now in a design system team, it can be really difficult to even figure out what are we building internally, right? Like all these different designers with different skill sets, they need guidance. Oh, but we can't cover all the cases. Okay, some product teams just need to figure it out on their own. And when it comes to actually thinking about end users from design system perspective, it's like, yeah, we should really start doing it, but we often tend to just not have time for it, not prioritize it, right? So how can you challenge a design system? If you see that the experience is not catering to users that deserve a good experience of your product, how can you challenge a design system? I'm going to give you 6 things. We're going to go through each one of them, and I'm hoping to leave you with some tangible examples and ideas. We'll talk about identifying the crucial bits of the experience, then how to poke holes and stretch it and see where it breaks, how to make your voice heard in an organization, how to understand and better promote the value of having diverse teams, how to incentivize contributing to the system, and why we should foster collaboration process. Let's go. With identifying the crucial bits, it helps to look at the user journey, right? It helps to imagine what is the most common flow that our users go through, and then swap personas, right? Like really think about who would be the person to be the most challenged with our experience right now, and then the little moments will start popping up. A really good toolbox that you can use, I'm not like a big astrology person, but the tarot cards of tech are a really, really great example of something that you can just find for free on the internet. I can send it later or link it later. But this is a set of different personas made into a question that can help you stretch it out and challenge it, right? This is the example question. When you picture your user base who is excluded, if they used your product, what would their experience be like, right? Other questions could involve, if tomorrow your product was suddenly used by 100 million people, who's going to have the worst experience of all, and how can you fix it for them? So this is a really, really good tool that you can use with your team to try to identify which are the really crucial parts that we really need to keep under control. And then going deeper into this, something you could get interested in is a field called speculative design. This is a topic for an entire talk, so I'm not going to get into too many details, but imagine you could think 10 years from now, imagine a scenario for the whole buy now, pay later product, right? You can workshop and discuss with people different scenarios. Let's say, what is the best case scenario that for buy now, pay later products, how could they influence society? And then the same, what is the worst case scenario for buy now, pay later products to influence society, right? Maybe somebody would say the best case scenario for buy now, pay later is that there is no more predatory loans. People get completely convinced that the payments should be flexible, and society is better off of it because people no longer struggle with, getting into these short-term debts. Maybe the worst case scenario, the other person would say, for buy now, pay later is that people shop more and more and more. We produce tons of waste. We contribute to climate change, and the rise of buy now, pay later product is directly linked to that effect, right? And then you work with different funnels, right? So you need to try to define, is it within possible range that this would happen? Is this plausible that it would happen? Or do a lot of things point at the fact that it's very probable to happen, right? And then depending what kind of conversation you want to get out of it, this is where you can ask, okay, what steps do we take now so that doesn't lead us to the worst case scenario? Or what steps do we take so we can steer towards the best case scenario? And that's also going to very much highlight the most important parts of your product, the vulnerable parts. If you want to start on it, this is a great book called Speculative Everything. Buy it, read it, it's fantastic, and go from there. Second point, look for holes in the product. The moment you see something breaks, it's really helpful to document it, right? As we saw, people often post it on Twitter. They're very vocal about it, right? A lot of people who identify as non-binary, they would post that, how am I supposed to choose between men and women, right? It's important to bring in the business language, because we're still talking about user base. We're talking about people who could potentially use our product, but they're not. There's something stopping them. It could be just bad experience based on something about their situation, or it could be straight on being discriminated. There's a lot of data available out there that can help you make the case, that can help you turn an insight that something is kind of discriminatory from our side or kind of uninclusive I'll give you an example of data that I work with. This is based on a fantastic research that is being continuously conducted by a Swedish agency named Funka. And Funka focuses on accessibility, mostly in Sweden, right? So something that I can bring up in my daily work is that over 1 billion people in the world have some sort of disability. That's a lot of people that could be our users if we don't design for them, right? 16% of Sweden's population lives with a disability, and 68% of Sweden's population has vision problems, right? That ranges from wearing glasses to being completely blind, but you never know really how many of those people enlarge the font size, for example, right? Or need some sort of adjustment to the interface that we're designing. Another part of barrier that people might be facing is that 20% of Sweden's population has limitation in the Swedish language, right? Maybe they don't speak the language at all, maybe they're just not proficient yet enough. This is a lot of people, right? On a global scale, Klarna has 150 million users. 20% of that is still millions of people. And this is what is out there. A lot of people are researching it. Once you're making your case, go look for it, speak business language to people. How do you make your voice heard in the organization? Here I'm going to reference a fantastic post by Amy Hupe. She's a consultant specialized in design systems. She's also a content designer. And she previously worked at a, I don't know if you know this website, it's like gov.uk. So basically British government has this whole really good website. She led their design system before. And what she's writing about in her blog article is different barriers that she researched when working for a British government. They were wondering, why aren't people contribute to the design system, right? Because design system is like adjusting to different needs within an organization. We are listening to the voice of our customers. But usually we also enable them to, like, you know, if you build a nice block of interface, just bring it in. We will just happily distribute it to everybody else, right? Why wouldn't people contribute to the system? There were 4 barriers that she talks about. There's time, confidence, motivation, and permission. She doesn't go into that much detail for every single one of these, but I'm going to give you my take on them. When it comes to time, right? Let's say that you're already busy with building something for your team, right? David is building maybe a redesigned version of Klarna checkout experience. If he's not given time to contribute to the system, he's not going to do it. If he can't work extra hours, well, he's not going to work extra hours. Like, who's gonna stay at work longer than necessary? Like, have some work-life balance, right? There might be employees who don't have the confidence. It's going to be much easier for somebody who feels like they've established their position, right? They're recognized as the designer in the company to bring up, hey, we should rethink our designs. Hey, I have a suggestion for you, right? For somebody who just started, or maybe somebody who's more junior, or maybe somebody who just doesn't feel the confidence, it's going to be hard to bring it up. When it comes to motivation, I'll also talk about it a little bit more later, but maybe I have time, maybe I am confident, but why would I even do it? I'm in a capitalist environment. My work is measured through the business impact that I immediately bring to the company. Why would I even think about distributing something to other people, right? Like, maybe they should be making this on their own. Like, this is my work, right? And with the permission, this is a more complex problem, right? Because maybe I am very eager. I can find time for it. I'm confident. But maybe my leaders don't really see the need for it. Like, I keep meeting this barrier of not being able to challenge the system. And thinking of these 4 barriers, who's going to be affected by them the most, right? Time is going to affect people who are not able to work super hard after hours, right? Like parents or caretakers. People who don't feel safe in the workplace, they're not going to have the confidence or sometimes the motivation or even the permission to contribute, right? To challenge the existing systems. People suffering from imposter syndrome. If I feel like they're going to discover me any moment now that I don't actually know what I'm doing and they should actually fire me, but I'm trying to thrive. it's pretty damn hard to get your, head out there and be like, I don't think this is working. I have a better idea. I think we're discriminating people, right? And numbers on these don't lie, unfortunately. When it comes to feeling safe at work, when it comes to feeling empowered, 47% of LGBTQ employees experience discrimination at work. Out of Black and Hispanic workers in the US who were discriminated against last year, over half of them believes the discrimination happened on account of their race. Half of all of the workers who suffer from imposter syndrome are working moms. And then 75% of world's unpaid work, so the work done after hours, the work that doesn't allow us to stay long, to do some extra work, to be noticed, to challenge the system. 75% of the work that has to be done after business hours, the grocery shopping, childcare, elder care, all kinds of housework, it's still done by women. So if we have these people facing these barriers, and they're much more likely to have a harder time challenging the system, that kind of leaves us with the same type of people contributing over and over again. And they might look like this, which isn't inherently bad, don't get me wrong. Men can be fantastic advocates for people with disabilities. They can be kind and empathetic, and they can believe in the right thing. But there is a big gap, and there is a big blind spot in doing something for people who don't look and don't think like you. Empathy can only take you as far, right? Understand the value of diverse teams. There's more and more research confirming that companies who invest in diverse teams, they outperform their competition. Their revenue is higher than the ones who are not really interested in those initiatives, right? And looking back in this graph, imagine that every product team now has a person that can bring this perspective a little bit closer, right? Maybe somebody in one product team knows what it's like to be an immigrant in a foreign country. Maybe they can advocate more for, we should really translate this to English. It's going to reach a different set of users, right? Maybe somebody is a person who identifies as part of LGBTQ community, and they can provide different examples. They can really advocate for making the product more welcoming and less discriminatory towards those people, and then our user base grows, right? Maybe somebody comes from a poor family. This is extremely important at Klarna. People who have money, they don't really need to pay later. Who pays later? Right? Who needs to push it maybe to 30 days, so maybe I'll have the money in a month. And then we're a bunch of kids with a lot of us background of living pretty comfortable life, sitting in Sweden, designing for Black communities in USA, right? Diversity is crucial here, because then if that person is empowered to go back, the design system is the accelerator. This is the guidance that we can provide. This is what we can incorporate in the building blocks that everybody uses in the organization. And this is the most fruitful circulation that can happen. What about still contributing to the system, right? What if there's no motivation amongst people to do it? We all want to do the right thing, right? We all want to just have some positive impact. A lot of the times, I don't know, building products can feel so overwhelming, like, what am I even doing? Like, am I even helping anybody with it? I don't know if you also have this feeling. I'm kind of pouring my heart in here, right? But how do we incentivize it? 4 things. It's very helpful for leaders to recognize that these barriers exist, that people aren't naturally always going to contribute, to think systemically, right? If we're still closed in the mindset of depending of how much the conversion rates increase from this improvement I'm working on, this is how I'm going to get promoted, this is how I'm going to prove my value. How do I go from I built something, now I want to systemize it from everyone else. I noticed a problem, now I want to escalate it so that this can be distributed for everyone to be more informed and build more inclusive products. We need to recognize the barriers. Then something we can do is implement systemic practices, right? Maybe speculative design thinking workshops could be held every quarter, right? Maybe we could have a review of our component regularly. Maybe we could try to do research focusing on groups that tend to be excluded in the products, right? The moment we implement something recurring and the more we make it into a practice, the more people learn that, aha, this is part of my job now. Aha, this is the kind of thinking I need to implement. If you want people to advance in their career, they could require them to start thinking in a more systemic way, right? If people know, aha, this is something I need to do in order to be senior, in order to be lead principal designer, that's a pretty damn good motivation for anyone to push themselves a little bit to think about it this way. And then whenever somebody actually does it, whenever somebody raises a problem, whenever somebody gets to distribute a really valuable design improvement, give them the recognition. Let people know that this matters and this is visible. And then the last point is to really foster the collaboration processes, right? Look at the different radar graphs of these two designers. If they worked together, if they even showed each other the work more often, they benefit from the parts that are in the overlap, right? David could help Amy make it more accessible. He could flag, hey, I think this is going to break on a screen reader. Hey, have you thought about making this flow very well documented so that developers can build it properly? Amy could help David's prototype have the best visual design, help him coach, right? The collaboration isn't just to build a product that brings more money. The collaboration is really where we are all human and our strengths and weaknesses can come together. The more overlap of different perspectives, the more it's okay that we're not perfect, because we're never going to be. But we can help each other really work through it. And then, as humans, design for other humans. So to recap, identify the crucial bits, look for the holes, make your voice heard in the organization, even if there are existing barriers. Understand the value of diverse teams. Think about the ways to really incentivize people to contribute to the system. And, you know, it's super old and very much repeated, but think about collaboration in a, maybe in a new light. Thank you. And if you're interested in different studies that I was referencing with the numbers and statements I was making, I prepared like a short overview as well.